All right, all right. Busy day. Chase Young. Uh Raider guy's gonna make an appearance today too. But Chase Young. Now, Mike Silver of the San Francisco Chronicle, often criticized by some Niner fans who think he's mean, but has been proven right pretty repeatedly. Although he might have been in the group of people that predicted Mac Jones, which for some of you have eliminated everything else he says. I've always said that's a dumb way to operate, but for some of you, that's the case. Anyway, Mike Silver wrote this in the San Francisco Chronicle about Chase Young. There's a reason Young was attainable for a third-round pick, whereas his former Washington teammate and fellow edge rusher, Montez Sweat, cost the Bears a second-rounder earlier in the day. If you go back and watch the one of the videos we did, the podcast we did yesterday, and it's available down in the description if you want to listen to it on the go, or you can watch the video on this YouTube channel, where we also appreciate if you like and subscribe. Uh, one of the pieces of feedback that John got when he texted around the league was, well, Montez Sweat's a better player. That's part of it. But anyway, onward. This is the money quote here that Mike Silver wrote. According to several Washington coaches and other organizational sources, Chase Young was viewed as an undisciplined player who developed bad habits, such as deviating from assignments in an effort to make splash plays. His off-the-field priorities and commitment to his craft were often questioned, and he was viewed internally as a player who plateaued as a rookie. All right. Now, keep in mind, Mike Silver, a Cal grad, and Mike Silver stays in touch with his Cal guys, and Ron Rivera is a Cal guy. So tight with Ron. Mike Silver also wrote for footballteam.com for a period of time. He was a team employee. He was in the building. So let's not do, are sources correct here on this one? I'm not interested in that. I believe that what he just wrote is how they felt. So the question is not so much, is it true? The question is, does this matter to the 49ers? And the answer is, well, we're about to find out. Maybe. But, the old saying, one man's trash is another man's treasure, or something like that. Chase Young was not trash. The numbers say, whatever the frustrations were, this year, halfway through the season, almost, he was performing. So maybe that's related to him being a free agent coming up. It's hard to know. Was he trying to make splash plays and playing outside of the system? Because somebody made the point yesterday, like, oh, he's an impending free agent. That's great news. Well, maybe it's great news, right? Like, it's great news because you think you're going to get a guy's maximum effort on one hand. The flip side of that, the concern would be that he's freelancing because he's trying to make himself money instead of what's right for the team. So we'll see. But just like when the Niners acquired Randy Gregory, the same thought process applies. This is a winning culture. This is a winning place. This is a place with high expectations and established players, and you don't get to come and screw around. Now, the expectations are higher for Chase Young than they were for Randy Gregory. If you thought Chase Young was cheap for a third, Randy Gregory was basically a complete giveaway. And so, Chase Young is a younger player, supposed to be a better player. But what's interesting about both of them is that both of them had Randy much more publicly. Like, I can tell you firsthand, I've said it repeatedly. Going back to training camp, I knew this, that Sean Payton couldn't wait to get Randy Gregory out of there. He thought Randy Gregory was a bad practice player, didn't like it, didn't like him, didn't think he was working hard, and wanted him out. They later made it seem like, it was part of just the process of changing things organizationally and moving on to younger, blah, 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 whatever. That's not what it was. So but the point is, like, both of them were coming off injuries. Both of them now get a change of scenery. And, you do wonder when a guy's coming off an injury, is what he believes maximum effort is different than what his team believes maximum effort is. I mean, I think even Randy Gregory said it once he came to the Niners that it was taking him time to come back from his injury. Chase Young, 2 years removed from an ACL. This is about when he should be back and fully ready to roll. And the production this year has looked like a guy that is doing that. I mean, you watch the tape, he looks. I've watched a couple of his games now. He looks good. Um, Statistically, he looks good. I mean, he is right top 6 in pressures, QB hits, sacks. Um, like it's all matching up with the film. Now, maybe, like I said, maybe somebody in Washington would say, yeah, the reason he's getting those numbers is because of XYZ. But Jack Del Rio, the defensive coordinator there as well. From the Raider time, I'm sure him and Silver have a relationship, but maybe they don't. Maybe they fight. I don't know. So, I think the question is like, and this goes back to something Richard Sherman said. I saw the clip of it on Twitter a couple days ago, and we talked about it yesterday too. That one of his criticisms of the Steve Wilkes defense is that they were playing too many games, quote unquote, like stunts up front, pass rushing instead of just pin your ears back and be a strong man and push the man out of the way in front of you, that kind of thing. And so maybe this frees things up a little bit for them. Maybe Chase Young hits at the exact right time because maybe they're about to do less of that stuff. Maybe they're about to let their guys freelance a little more. The thing when you watch a Nick Bosa, like you see all these clips of Nick Bosa in a practice, and I've watched Nick Bosa in practice, and some of you have also watched Nick Bosa in practice. But like anytime the Niners, when Trent Williams is there, or Randy Gregory shows up, or one of these guys who's like has like that high level talent on offense or defense, there's always these clips of Bosa like showing him this, showing him that, and they're working on this and they're working on that. And I would imagine that when Chase Young shows up, former Ohio State guy, Nick is going to have some ideas about, man, could you line us up? I know we usually line up opposite edge. Could you ever line us up next? Like they're going to have some ideas of how they could work together. And because Nick seems to like that stuff to a degree, but it does look like he's gotten a little bit frustrated. And that run play touchdown last week was maybe the first real sign of like physical frustration, where it felt like he wasn't in the right position or he wasn't getting the support he needed defensively. So, what this team needs on defense right now is physicality, it's effort, and the talent doesn't hurt. They're just not as talented opposite of Bosa with Cleveland Ferrell. I mean, they are not even, I don't know if they're as talented, but they're certainly not as productive with Drake Jackson. Randy Gregory comes in, but, he's made a couple of plays, but he's not your every down pass rusher. I would say, Matthew, they've won in the sense that he's added depth for them because he belongs on the field over Drake Jackson, and he's shown it. So in that sense, they traded basically nothing and paid very little for depth at that position, and they got it. So I think in that sense they've won. I mean, they just haven't won in the, okay, this answered their problem for, this answered their need for another pass rusher. This guy does. This guy can match the talent that they lack. They lack talent, like elite blue chip talent at opposite pass rushing spot, and now they've got it. So I believe this. I 100% believe it. You hope that you put him in a good spot on a team that's trying to win a championship. If you were going to defend him, and if you're the Niners, you do look at this thing. You do look at any criticism of Chase Young like, glass hat. Let's find the positive in this. Let's find a way to make this work. One would be Washington has been a hopeless franchise for a really long time. It's been a place where you work together as a team to maybe win 8 games. So if you're looking for a player, in an ideal world, every player would be perfect and they would be team over individual, no matter the situation. Not the reality of most people, unfortunately, or whatever. Not even unfortunately, just that's reality. And so maybe you put them in a place now where He's new. You got to fit in. Kyle Whittingham, the coach at Utah, has a great saying, and he said, I've heard him say it many times. He says, "You become us, we don't become you." He's talking about transfers and incoming players and coaches, right? You become us, we don't become you. Like, fit in or get out. And I think there's some of that here with this team. Even though they've lost 3 in a row, because they've lost 3 in a row, Chase Young might walk in and be like, in his head, right? Like, I'm here. Savior's here. Kind of the spot McCaffrey kind of came into last year. And McCaffrey was the savior. But, this is a little different. This is not that. Like, even though they've lost 3 in a row, you got to fit in. And I think it's probably easier when Bosa's in that room, when Armstead's there, when Hargrave's there. You got to fit in. Fit in doesn't mean stifle your creativity or your talent, though. And hopefully they can maximize that, because they've lacked it. And now the Broncos are winning games. Yeah, I don't buy for a second what the Broncos. It doesn't matter, because again, you didn't trade a high pick. You didn't really. You're not paying much, but don't for a second believe what Denver said, that it was just time to move on defensively, and it's a win-win for everybody. That's not what it was about. I am not. This is not me guessing. This is not me telling you what somebody else has reported. This is me telling you Sean Payton wanted him out for a long time, and he finally got him out. Sean Payton wanted him out before the season started. That was at the top of his to-do list, and he got it done. So, just know that. Denver has won 2 games in a row. Denver is now 3-5. Denver is on its bye. Denver plays the Bills, and then Josh Dobbs' Vikings. They beat the Chiefs and the Bills back-to-back. What a tough back-to-back for Denver. Jeez. Oh. Adam says, I think that Matt meant the Niners still haven't won with Gregory. Like, literally won. Matthew. Go see Matthew. Pink onion pizza. Is the Jimmy G still on the menu there, Matthew? The Jimmy Garoppolo, I know, is a very popular pizza at Pink Onion. Great pizza, but it's not just pizza. The tiramisu, the salads, the pasta. I'm not getting paid for this. It's excellent. Pink Onion. Matthew's the guy. Go see Matthew. You get a free plug because I misread. It happens sometimes. That's why I like the comments. I love attacking somebody in the comments after I misunderstood what they were saying. Looks like the admission of the loss of Ebukam and Amenahu was underrated this offseason. Yeah, I mean, this is something that I was wrong about in the offseason. I thought they had enough pass rushing depth. I remember a couple times specifically disagreeing about it with Larry Krueger, and he was right. They did not have enough depth. They didn't have enough talent. They needed more help. Now, remember, they got Taco Charlton for 7 seconds, and then he got hurt. It used to be such a strength for the team, and it's not a strength. It's not a strength. So, Chase Young against the run is going to be maybe as important, maybe more important, if it's possible that it's even more important for them, because that is really, they've been getting gashed, and it is the most unlike them. They've played teams that can be explosive passing the ball and are explosive passing the ball, but getting gashed is a different look for them, and it's a bad look for them. And we were talking about it yesterday. They are so complimentary. Like, every coach loves to say complimentary football, complimentary football, complimentary football, but they are so complimentary because their offense needs time. And so when their defense is unable to get off the field and they give up points, so they trail, their offense is just behind. They're just stuck in a corner because they don't really score quickly. I mean, we talk about this a couple of times. I'm not going to go through it all again, but beginning of the fourth quarter, takes them down 2 scores, takes them 5 minutes to score, which isn't slow, but it's not fast. So, it's definitely definitely complimentary. Happy November, guy. Thoughts on bringing Mike Singletary in as an ass coach? He can be on the field and use his butt to pump up the team. Puns intended. We need real solutions right now, Ed. There are free ads. You put you give me a menu item, the ham pod pie, um, sausage, pepperoni, jalapeno. Then it's been a while since I've had it. Then you get free ads. Okay, that's fine. Randall, need Luter and Womack to fix the real issue. Getting your nickel targeted nonstop is a real issue. Hugh, was Shanahan reaching for what he thought would be another comp pick when he hired Wilkes? I don't think so. That'd be a crazy thing to do. That'd be a crazy thing to do. It'd be insane. You're trying to win a Super Bowl. You're trying to win a Super Bowl. You're not trying to get a third-round pick for style points and win a Super Bowl. You're just trying to win a Super Bowl. So they're just trying to win a Super Bowl. Now, I thought when they hired him, it would be a nice little, side hustle to pick up a third rounder when he leaves to become a head coach. But it turns out he might be a better. Well, we'll see. But no, I don't think so. I've been asked that many times. I've wondered it. It's not a crazy thing to wonder. Are they trying to moneyball everything, including comp picks? But I don't think so. And it would be an insane thing to have done. If you're like, well, we like two guys, but a comp pick for this guy. It'd be crazy. They had no internal candidates. Need some internal candidates. Bring Steve Wilkes to the sideline. Might spark the defense. I think it's a desperate thing. It's pandering to the public is a desperate thing. That's why it happens in college more than the NFL. If you're expecting Steve Wilkes to be on the sideline, hitting guys in the shoulder pads, I've watched him coach cornerbacks, the DBs in practice. It's not what he does. So you can bring him on the sideline to fire guys up, but if it's not authentically part of who he is, then it fails. I said this yesterday. I said it Monday. I might have said it Sunday. We've been on this because I knew this was going to come up. I've seen it happen so many times. I called this one. We're going to start talking about, should he be the guy on the sidelines now? And I think it's mostly a waste of time. But I'll repeat it for the fourth day in a row. The only way it makes sense to me is if part of the problem, Kyle does a little in-house, talks to him, talks to Fred Warner, talks to Bosa, talks to Hufunga, but specifically with Warner, if part of the problem is that they're not able to make in-game adjustments as quickly as they'd like to, or the players can't give the feedback to Wilkes, and Wilkes can't give his feedback to their feedback as quickly as they'd like because they can't have just a person-to-person conversation because you got to talk through a position coach or you got to pick up the phone, and it's just not the same. You can't go over the little pictures on the tablet together. If that is part of the problem, if that's like at the top of the list of problems, like we are not as in sync as we were with D'Amico. And because we're not as in sync, we need to communicate more during the game, right? Maybe Saleh gets off to a slow start. D'Amico comes in, was already part of the staff. So you're in sync. This guy's brand new. He's adapting to you. You're adapting to him. We're not in sync. So we need to communicate more during the game. If Fred Warner told Kyle, that's a problem, Kyle, I need him down here so I can talk to him. So I can say, this is not working. This is working. Let's do this. Let's stop doing that. And then Steve can say, well, actually, what I want you to do is this. And okay, fine. If that's the feedback Kyle gets when he does his little internal investigation, then to me, it's not pandering. Then to me, it's not just moving deck chairs around on the Titanic. Then it's fine. But if it's for any other reason, if it's for I want to look the guys in the eye, that's what they always say. I want to look the guys in the eye. Right? I want to be on the ground on the front line with my troops. If they say that, whatever. It's not going to change anything. If it's about communication, okay, that would be not superficial to me. Everything else is superficial. They used to target Lenore. Now he's the solution. Now it's like we just got to find a way to move Lenore inside. I think he's been good. I mean, he's been Ambry wasn't, but Lenore's been good. Oh, I did see somebody. Was John Lynch on radio this morning? He might have been on radio this morning. I saw Matt Barrows in my timeline tweeted that the report fake that they almost had an Adoree Jackson trade done with the Giants, but didn't happen in time. Not real. He said not true. So that was a story from yesterday, and you can ignore that. Someone needs to freelance on this defense. This smoke break week is to watch other teams to see how good and bad they perform. I've been watching them. The Eagles have been tested. The Eagles got tested by Washington last week, pulled it out. Seattle got tested by the Browns at home, pulled it out. They're winning the games that the Niners are not winning. The way the Niners are losing, these teams are winning. Chase is an upgrade. They're not giving it much up. So win-win. Yeah, I think it's a very good way of looking at it. Absolutely. One moment while I make a costume change here. Oh my God. You remember when the Niners wanted Josh McDaniels? Do you remember when the Niners wanted Josh McDaniels? Sometimes Garth Brooks has a great song called, I think it's called Unanswered Prayers. Some of God's greatest gifts are unanswered prayers. The Niners wanted Josh McDaniels. Big time Josh McDaniels. Super Bowl winning Josh McDaniels. Tom Brady tutored Josh McDaniels. The first non-interim coach in the Super Bowl era to be fired by two franchises before the end of his second season with each. Josh McDaniels left the Colts plane flying back to Indy empty. Josh McDaniels. For all your complaints and mine and others, there are things to nitpick with Kyle Shanahan. He's not Josh McDaniels, and the Niners wanted Josh McDaniels. Here's the good news on Josh McDaniels. If the Niners had hired Josh McDaniels, he'd be gone by now. So there's that. What a disaster. What an absolute, unequivocal disaster. But much like Garth Brooks, some of God's greatest gifts are unanswered prayers. Josh failing might finally line it up for Mark Davis and Jim Harbaugh. There was a report the other day that Michigan took a massive contract extension off the table for Jim. That report's been refuted. Michigan president and athletics director and regents are currently working to finalize Harbaugh's contract, which will make him the highest paid coach in the Big Ten. So Mark Davis may need to act. Maybe that precipitated the trade. This was Monday night in bed, late, almost 10 p.m. That's late for me. Middlekoff sent me a text. He's like, I was doing my last scroll, or maybe he tweeted that. Anyway, he texted me the story. They did it. They fired those two. Not just the head coach. They fired the GM and the OC. Michael Lombardi's son, out. Dave Ziegler, out. Josh McDaniels with 4 years on his contract left, out. I remember last year Plaschke said that the Raiders didn't have the money last year to fire the head coach and the GM if they wanted to. Well, they found the money. Monday night at 10 p.m. Were they? It makes you think they must have been arguing all day long, or maybe the other alternative. That was my first thought. Were they just arguing all day long? Then maybe this Jim Harbaugh thing breaks in the middle of the day. Maybe Mark Davis looks in on it. He goes, I got to get Jim. Jim wants to get back to the NFL. This has been the most obvious destination. He worked for the Raiders. He and David Shaw worked for the Raiders, but he worked for the Raiders. They were connected kind of a couple coaching searches ago, and or maybe three coaching. I don't remember how many coaching searches ago, but they've had a lot of coaching searches. I remember this quote that Jim Harbaugh gave Tim Kawakami about what happened this day. I remember being at this game. Very frustrating day for Colin Kaepernick. Derek Carr played well. Niners lost to the Raiders. And Davis was asked by Kawakami what they talked about before the game. And what Jim said was or he talked to Mark Davis. Mark Davis said, "You stole our dysfunction. That's supposed to be our thing." So with Jim's new contract extension on the verge, maybe if John Gruden's allowed back in the NFL, maybe he can go back to John Gruden. I mean, he's already had a contract done with him, so you could go back to John Gruden. But sad day. No, you know what? Happy day in this Raider organization. We, Raider Nation, deserve better. We, Raider Nation, definitely deserve better than Josh McDaniels. Somehow the coaches have gotten worse. Worse. Dennis Allen's off there having success even. But Del Rio, turns out, wasn't the worst. John Gruden, it wasn't going well, but it was better than this. And Mark Davis had enough. I'm just glad he's got the stadium money. All those Jets people buying tickets for the next game on Sunday Night Football. Sunday Night Football. Maybe that was part of it. He's like, I can't do this on Sunday Night Football. National television again. Wow. They made Antonio Pierce the interim head coach. So all's well. Antonio only got run out of town the last place he was, albeit college football, where the rules are, they have a lot of rules in college football. And he broke a lot of the rules in college football. You may not have noticed because Arizona State has 2 wins, but they're not allowed to go to the postseason this year because of what happened largely under the watch of Antonio Pierce while he was at Arizona State. I mean, Herm Edwards was the head coach, so him too. But Antonio Pierce takes over. Going to be a lot of good coaching. It's going to be an interesting offseason for the Raiders. I saw somebody mention Lions OC. Yep. Good candidate. Be some good candidates out there. And obviously you want to take that job because it's a head coaching job. The other thing, not only did the Niners dodge Josh McDaniels, and we talked about this on the podcast a little bit. How about the way that Jimmy Garoppolo has looked? That's your handpicked guy in a must-win season. Him and Brian Hoyer, utter disaster. Utter disaster. So the more things change, the more they stay the same. But we as a nation will stand strong. We as a nation will persevere. We as a nation will stand together. And there's only one man that can save the nation now, and that's Jimmy Harbaugh. And you might think, Guy, this is just a Raider guy character that you have. No, I believe it. The only man that can save the Raiders now is the force of nature that is Jim Harbaugh. It's 100% true. Coming in to just coach football, not going to get it done. You need a force of nature. When Jim Harbaugh took over at Stanford, now Stanford's had some ups and downs over the years. They were up before, they were down before. But when he took over at Stanford, he did something. Now, but they wanted him gone the second he was gone. They couldn't be happier that he left, and it worked out for a period. But he changed a lot of things at Stanford, like finally finding a way to work with the institution on just to some degree getting some football players that might otherwise not get into school to some like a very little degree. But he found a way to work with the administration. He changed Stanford. Very hard place to change. The Niners were a mess when he took them over. A mess. He changed them immediately. Not kinda, like from mess to Super Bowl contender. Immediately. Michigan. I'd been to 2 Michigan games pre-Harbaugh. I remember being at a Michigan game, like right before Harbaugh. I remember being in a Michigan game against Utah. They were playing Utah. They were getting their butts kicked. This is just before Harbaugh got there. There was I was working for Pac-12 Network there. There was a lightning delay. So they had to clear the stadium. So I end up in an elevator going down. And from the suite level, an older woman gets in with like a walker and like her son-in-law and her daughter holding her up. Nobody's really talking. And she's just looking at the ground, shaking her head. Everyone's kind of wet. And she goes, What's happened to my Michigan Wolverines? Just to nobody in particular, in a quiet, depressed elevator. And then Harbaugh showed up and changed everything. Now, I don't think he's winning the championship. I don't think he's winning the championship there, but he's changing everything. So there's only one answer to this. It's not Gruden. It's not Ben Johnson. Um, it's not any number of guys. It's Jim Harbaugh. That is the only answer. Mark Davis has no choice but to fire Josh McDaniels on Halloween and try to get Harbs. Could he get Harbs to leave during the season? Can he get him to promise? That's the tough part. Is like you can say, yeah, we'll have a deal. Then Jim goes to the college football playoff. They put a big contract in front of him. But I think he wants to come back to the NFL. I think he wants to win a Super Bowl. And I think it's happening. So there's that. I just saw somebody in the chat said, let's talk Chase. Okay. Sure. That is what we're here to talk about, I guess. The Kyle Shanahan tree and the Bill Belichick tree. You got to say this. Belichick's got the championships. Shanahan's got the tree. There's no doubt that did Tom Brady buy a piece of the team at a heavy FTX discount yet, or did that not happen? Ooh, crazy hot take. Raiders waive Jimmy G. Wonder where he goes after that. Well, I don't think him and Kyle are on speaking terms. So, Miami, if that were to happen, I see Jimmy G might be like Alex Smith all over again. Harbaugh steps in, and it all works out. Somebody had a good Chase Young comment here I want to get back to. Where did this go? Basically, it was undisciplined with the Commanders. Who cares? He's a Niner. Here we go. E. Herbo. He's undisciplined in the Commanders scheme. This isn't the Commanders. That is a fact, Jack. Chase Young is a bust if he's not focused. I think some Washington fans need to get some Washington. I love knowing, like, how do you guys feel about a guy? Because that's really insightful generally. But again, like, it's also different, right? You draft a guy second, he doesn't work out for you. It's a problem. Somebody else gets him for a third. Who cares? There's no pressure. The standard is just very different. You know, when you're the one that paid him, you're the one that drafted him, you're the one that had all this hope for him. The standard's different than for the team that gets him for a third round pick. So, but still, nonetheless, like I think there are just things when you watch it every day, as fans do, that you just know more than anybody who's watched like 3 games of tape and goes, "Oh, okay." Looks at the PFF stats and goes, "Oh, okay." You know, but you're also scarred and jaded, so it's but that's just because you've seen it all. So it's kind of a catch-22. All right. On that note, I had to get a little Raiders in, but this was about Chase Young and Mike Silver's reporting, and appreciate you guys being here. So we're sponsored by Tito's Handmade Vodka. The helmet's out of the screen. Tito's Handmade Vodka. Crafted to be savored responsibly. If you're here right now, hit that like button. Appreciate that very much. Helps the channel grow, sends the video to other people. When you hit that like button, then YouTube's like, oh, they like this. I'm going to send it to somebody else. And then somebody else sees it. And that it's called the velocity of YouTube. It's how the algorithm works in part. And so you help it out. So thank you for doing that. No brainer trade. I agree. No brainer trade. No brainer trade. This is a positive mood. They had to make it. And the Madden update should hit tomorrow. The Madden update, he's playing well. He's playing well. Another Madden update. Another Madden update. That's a really good player if he gets another Madden update. A leopard does not change his spots. I mean, there's a lot of evidence in sports of I think it'd be one thing if you went and paid him 5 years, whatever, right? But you're counting on half a season plus a postseason, you hope, getting the most out of a guy. You need him, he needs you. He needs you to help him get paid. You need him to help you win a championship. So I think that's what you're counting on. You're not, who knows what happens, but you're not getting in bed with him for life. This isn't a marriage. You're dating. And right now you need a date for wedding season and maybe a high school reunion or something. Doesn't mean you're getting married. So I think that's kind of, that's what I would say to that is it just, you're asking different things of different people. You're asking something very different of Nick Bosa than you are of Chase Young. And that's, you paid him a lot of money. And I'm always in favor. I think people look at it like, you paid a guy a lot of money. You don't think he's performing as well as he should. Well, he better step it up. I'm in favor of it's something's a little off. Let's help. And it didn't cost him much to help. So you are getting, even if you're getting Nick Bosa help when you get Chase Young. Your team's better. The team is better. The team is better. For a third round pick and less than $600,000, the team is better. So that's a win. That's a win. But I think the Silver thing just adds a little intrigue to the next week and a half of waiting to see him, then see him again. But it's a net positive for them. All right. That's my he did get a sack of Hurts in the Eagles game. Yeah, he did. They've played 2 Eagles games. But he did get a sack of Hurts in his Eagles games. And he's going to play the Eagles again, and then hopefully he's going to play the Eagles again in the NFC Championship game. So, long way to go till then. All right. On that note, thanks for hanging, everybody. Out of here for now, and talk to you later. Later.